Are you seriously going to eat, you fat blibbity blabbity blob? I mean, some of you might be like,
continual.
why would I want to start this?
Sensitive. She's sensitive.
You are listening to the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing podcast, where we share stories that are, you guessed it, unscripted.
That's the thing, this journey doesn't stop.
It doesn't really
right?
end. We have a general sense of the topic each episode, but really the whole point is just to show up and be authentic and let our inner child speak its truth. And I have continued to work through that story of constantly hearing, well, we don't want, got a hot dog on our hands. Yeah, guess what, Mr. Sabatsky, you do. So I'm so excited that you are here, and it is my hope that you hear yourself somewhere in the story so that way you can feel seen and heard as well. So let's start talking. I am so excited to get to this episode. I just got done recording with my guest, but I wanted to make sure that you didn't have to wait for the goods, because I know some of you get distracted and you better not be stopping this podcast. But if you don't make it to the end, I don't want you to miss out on what Christy and I got going on, because Christie Bemis and I are partnering, which I'm so excited about. It's like a dream come true, because she is an amazing, amazing therapist, and it means the world to me, and it feels like such an honor that she wanted to work with me, little old Tami over here, little inner child oracle guru, I don't know, intuitive, whatever you want to call me. And so it's just like, yeah, I'll partner with you. So we are putting together a 4-week program to help people tap into their inner child. And we just have such unique perspectives and different angles at this. And so it is a 4-week program that we're going to be starting in June. It is only $147 to do this work. For that is amazing and ridiculous. And wow, if I think of the years that I have been doing this work and the time and the money and the energy that I have invested, that is a steal of a deal. And so if your inner child likes a deal like mine, I would click the link in the comments below and join us, because it's going to be an amazing 4 weeks. And we're doing some live calls during those 4 weeks, a lot of interaction. So it's just a very unique program. It's very unique in that her and I are doing it together, and that we're both bringing our unique styles and personalities and perspectives and all of that jazz. So you'll get a feel for that throughout the episode, but I wanted to make sure that that did not get missed. So that is called Roots and Wings, and it is kicking off in June. So, all right, I'll let you get to the episode. Welcome to the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing podcast. I am rejoined by my guest, Christie Bemis. We just found out that it was almost a year ago that you were on for episode 14. And that was one of the most vulnerable episodes that I have recorded still to this date.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, because it was about sexual shame and sexuality. And I was talking about how I hide my tampons in my sleeve because, you know, as women, I'm a 42-year-old woman. Why wouldn't I be scared to let other women know that I'm menstruating? Like what?
Yeah, anything about our bodies, right?
Yeah.
Like shame, cover. Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason that I wanted her back, we've got some fun things in the works, but we were just talking that so much has changed in the last year.
Yes.
For both of us in so many ways. And one thing that I wanted to bring you on here for is because you do a lot with couples. That's kind of your jam. And I'll let you kind of share a little bit more about what you do to refresh people. But you should go back and watch episode 14 because it's a good one. Except my audio was pretty crappy. That one, I think I had those tiny little mics.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And my necklace was like dangling. You're like, no.
I don't know. Good info, bad audio.
We've grown. We've made some advancements. I still use the punching bag as my prop for my computer, though.
That's good.
But yeah, so let's start there. Let's share a little bit about what you do and this new guide that you have for couples, and then we'll just dive into what's been going on with us and what we got going on.
Yeah, great. Well, one, thanks for this platform.
Yeah.
I always love hanging out with you, but I really like to do episodes with you.
Yeah.
And I like all your other episodes too. I work a lot with couples. I'm a psychotherapist and also a relationship coach, sex educator. And now I am a retreat center owner. That's changed. Last year I would have been like, that's crazy. And then this year, the opportunity just came up. And so that's happening in the works this year. And this last year, I launched my SPARCS assessment for couples, which is something I've been working on for like 5 years.
Yeah.
And really just kind of honing in on things, taking in all of the material that I've learned over the course of my career, which spans 30 plus years now. And really trying it out on couples and seeing what makes the healthiest couple out there, what are the key ingredients. So it works on 6 elements that I feel like are important in coupleship. And I launched that. And so people can take a free assessment. It's on my website. And then you get instantaneous results spit out. And then if you want to dive in further, because I only give in each of the 6 areas, there's probably about 10 or 12 questions, but I only give about 5 away in the free assessment.
Yeah.
So if it piques couples' interest, then they can dive in deeper with me.
Let's walk through what are the 6 that you focus on.
Yeah. So the 6 elements I feel like are key to most of the relationships that I work with that are doing well, and areas that I feel like I assess in my own relationship all the time. The first one is safety.
Ooh, talk about that
And
all the time.
yes. And safety is a felt sense of safety inside, but it's also feeling safe with your partner, not in a physical way.
Right.
Because certainly if somebody's being physically unsafe, please go get help and support. This is not the assessment for you, because that's integral to be physically safe. So it's supposing already that there's physical safety. You take the assessment. Safety is also when my partner follows through, when I feel like I can bring something up to my partner and they're not going to explode on me, when I feel like there can be repair, when I know my partner, this is an interesting one, when I know my partner medically is taking care of themselves, going to get their dental done. Because I take care of my body, I want to be as healthy as possible as we move through our aging process. And I hope my partner is not expecting me to be an instantaneous caretaker. Certainly that occurs and happens, but it's not something, if you can prevent certain things, do it. Makes your partner feel safe. So that's one area. Play and pleasure is another area. The anticipation of fun on the horizon, doing a shared activity together, having your own activities, attunement and attachment.
Ooh.
So that has to do a lot with the inner child work that you and I love collaborating on recently. And another one that's interesting is realized dreams.
Ooh.
And this one has to do with when you go into partnership, not all of your individual desires, wants, and dreams get exploded. And if my partner wants to, let's say, study abroad in Japan for a year, how can I support that? How can the relationship support those things?
Yeah.
If I want to write a novel, which takes time and commitment, how can my partner support that? If I want to run a half marathon, how does my partner support me in those realized dreams versus, oh God, you're training again? Like, great, and having it be a burden. How can we support that stuff we want to do? Communication suite of ideas or of tools is the C in SPARCS. And then the last one is sex and intimacy, which is not just how often are we having sex, but is the quality to what we want? Are there glitches along the way? Is there healing that needs to happen? So that's the assessment. That's what I think makes a healthy couple. So, and you don't have to get an A.
You don't have to get an A?
No, my partner and I regularly can get Fs in an area. Let's say realized dreams is just not going well. We know that then it's an area that we need to work on.
Well, and I love that just even taking the assessment is like, whoa, here are some areas that we can work on, and being able to have that open communication to see where there are some gaps or where there's a miscommunication or just not the realization of what someone else is feeling or going through or feeling safe or not. That's huge to be able to give couples that aspect.
Yeah, it's kind of more like a guide, and you're not trying to get 100% on the assessment. You're trying to figure out where are our strengths, where are the areas that need improvement right now, and it's something meant to take over the course of time again and again, where you can just kind of reassess. I have one couple that they go off every 6 months for a weekend and they take the assessment.
Wow.
And they see, where did we grow from the last time? Where did we slide? What needs to be course corrected?
And way to be intentional about your relationship.
That's the only kind of relationship I want to be in.
Right? Exactly.
Seriously. Friendships, my kids, my parents, my partner. I want intention. I don't want to just be on autopilot. Yeah. I'm just done with that.
Done. Yeah. Done with the autopilot. Well, it just is what it is. Like,
Yeah.
no,
Mm-hmm.
we can put some intention into this and make this better.
Yeah.
If we're willing to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. How do you find most couples come to you? Are they in a place where they're open for that kind of feedback or not there yet?
Mm. I think the way most couples come to me, and probably certainly if I would have taken my husband to therapy, would be like, can you fix him? You know, I do think that's how we come to therapy often, right? Like, please just fix these things and then we'll be okay.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Through working with me, I think people come to realize, oh, there's something that I contribute to the overall dynamics.
Absolutely.
And so I think couples come in all kinds of different ways, but I hardly ever see somebody come in for therapy going, everything's going great. We're
Right.
fine. Why would you be coming to therapy then? But mostly like, fix my partner, or this dynamic has to get fixed or I'm done. Those are usually what brings a couple in.
Are you working with just couples, or is it maybe the wife or the husband first and then they're able to bring the other one in, or are they actually coming as a couple?
Yeah, both. I work a lot with men who are coming in sometimes at their partner's suggestion, or sometimes just because they're like, this isn't what I intended for my life or my relationships. And so they're coming in working on all kinds of relationships. And I work a lot with women who maybe are afraid to bring their partner in, or their partner has been a dead stop on that.
Yeah.
And working through, how can you dare to rock the boat with your partner and say, hey, if this doesn't get better, I don't know.
Right.
Like, I don't know about us. I don't know about you getting what you want in the relationship.
Right.
And so helping people find the words for that. So I do probably about 50% of my work is with couples, and then the other 50% is individuals. And it's a nice mix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I remember going to therapy, and full disclosure, this is when my throat chakra is completely blocked. I can't speak up. I can't communicate how I really feel and where I'm really at, because I thought I don't want to hurt him. When really now I know I was protecting my inner child. My ego was like, you can't make anyone. Yeah, I don't want to hurt me. And so I just remember thinking, this isn't getting to the root. And that was actually, I think, what propelled me onto inner child work. Is somehow I found that because I was recognizing it's easy to project and be like, you make me feel this way. And I was like, oh, wait a second. I'm like, I'm allowing you to make me feel this way. And that's when I was like, all of a sudden that mirror was right in my face. I'm like, oh, this is like, I have to take some ownership for this. Right. And that was the best thing I could have ever done, because it then showed me this isn't even about him. And I mean, certainly we triggered each other in many ways, but he was always a mirror for unresolved childhood wounds, things that had started way back when. And he was just another test, where I had my high school boyfriend was a test, or other, friendships or other things. I can see all of those patterns playing out a million times. He just happened to be the biggest one right in my face. And I have to be mindful of that. I was like, this is my stuff, but he also had his stuff too. But that was what allowed me to really reflect on, what is this bringing up for me? And going back to the whole therapy thing, when she had given us a sheet of, if you go out on a date and here are some questions you could ask. And it was like, if you could be a superhero. And I was like, yeah, I'm not there. We talk about safety.
Yeah. Like, I'm not ready to explore those things.
No, I was so far beyond that. We need to talk about that. I don't feel emotionally safe even doing that. Not like physically safe. That was never an issue, but it was emotionally safe.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not in a place where I want to even go on a date. Can we talk about that? Like, we gotta back this train up a little bit here. I'm not here. But I couldn't communicate it. I couldn't say it out loud. And that's a problem.
That is a problem. And I think that's when I was first doing therapy 20 to 30 years ago, having a couple come in, and I would focus so much on the communication stuff. And there was so much missing there. She's checked out. She's not even listening to me or tracking anymore. Or he's dismissed and ready for like next. And so I wasn't doing my clients a service at all by having them work on communication skills without being safe or attuned to themselves or feeling heard and things in their relationship. So when you know better, you do better.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting what you said about being triggered. I hope your partner triggers you.
Oh, yeah.
I hope, because that
Yes.
means, yes, there's gold here and there's work to be done.
Now I can understand that.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is showing me what else I need to heal. Like, bring it.
Yeah. Whether you stay together or not, having a partnership that is completely harmonious is not ever, ever, ever the goal. And so I don't want people to ever be afraid of conflict or triggeredness, because that's where the juicy healing stuff happens. It's more about when I am triggered, what is that about for me? And that's where like inner child work stuff comes in, because those triggers, I don't care who you are. And there's so many couples that come in and they're like, I don't want to do that child stuff. I just want to move forward, just sweep it. Can we just sweep it under the rug a little bit and let's just, move forward? And it's like, no, I'm sorry. I would not be doing you a service if we don't talk about how those things that happened when you were a child is playing out in your relationship today. Because you wouldn't feel this intense if it wasn't connected to something back there.
Right. Well, and when you can understand how you trigger each other, you can have more understanding and compassion for when it happens and how to move through that. And I will never forget, I had a session with a couple, and I had been working with the wife for a while, so I knew her story really well. But then I had a one-on-one with him, found out his childhood story, and I was like, oh my gosh, this makes total sense. She was completely opposite.
Yeah.
She, was raised by a single mom. So she was the people pleaser. She was the caregiver. She would be in everything, trying to help with everything and everyone. Whereas he had a very, very chaotic childhood, to the point where he wanted to check out. He didn't want to deal with anyone's shit. And so she comes home from work.
I can relate.
Right. Wanting to talk about stuff. He doesn't want to at all. And it was just like perfect storm.
We find each other. Avoidant attachment people find anxious attachment people.
let's go
and we
there.
make little babies together. And those little babies are bombs in our relationship, right? But that's what we find each other. And that's the beauty of it. I hope so. I hope we find each other. And just because I'm avoidant attachment usually. But sometimes in relationships, I can show up anxious too.
I can be both. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like a lifelong commitment to one or the other, but it's recognizing when that's happening. Can I share a story about?
Please do.
Okay. So I've done so much work, especially just in the last 5 years. But I was with my partner and we were putting the boat in the water. And my partner can be a little bit of a know-it-all. And I've been doing this independent boat putting in the water for the last 5 years by myself. And so I was feeling really frazzled because he had the right way to do it and I had my way. And I was just feeling really frazzled and feeling like we only had a finite amount of time to get this done. Can we just get it done? And it felt so good for him to stay. I was in my adaptive child, just spiraling. I don't know what inner child, adaptive child, whatever it is, just spiraling into like this blubbering mess of like womanhood, hear me roar. And he finally was like, let me just get in the water and then you do your jam, you do your thing. And he just kind of took charge, like was the captain of the boat and just kind of took charge, which normally for me would have been like, you don't dare take charge. And then I'm not taken care of. And then I'm resentful.
Yeah.
So I was like, Christie, put the adaptive child away for a minute.
Yeah.
And recalibrate your nervous system. Get out of the car and let him get the boat in the water. Let him help you. Let him support you and be supported. And that's hard for me to be supported because I take a lot, like it's a badge of honor to be a woman, hear me roar.
Yep.
But it's not very relational all the time.
It's not.
It's not. So this happened and then I get in the boat and thanked him. And what was interesting is he's doing the work with me, which is really lovely. And he said, well, somebody had to stay the wise adult. And so that's fine. Like it wasn't placating. It wasn't like, oh, little woman. It was more of like, I recognized you were in your adaptive child.
Yep.
And I needed to stay really clean.
Yeah.
And I was like, thank you. Because if both of our adaptive child were in the car, that boat and my Jeep would have been 12 feet underwater by now.
Yep. Well, and I kind of describe it as at that point, Lego has swooped in and is now in fight, flight, or freeze. And so that's kind of, I think, the same Same thing,
Same
different terms and language, but that's kind of how I would describe it too, is like when you're spiraling, when you're in fight, flight, or freeze, or so just people that are listening, like that's how I call it. But I love that way of thinking about it too, because you're right. It is trying to adapt to the situation.
Yeah.
I'm triggered and this is how I'm adapting. Maybe
I'm
not
triggered. I'm 12.
Yeah. Yes. 100%.
Should not be driving my Jeep.
You should not.
Nor the relationship.
No.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, and that's like, what a beautiful way to, again, feel safe in they're recognizing when I'm in a moment, and instead of berating you or gaslighting you or whatever, to actually just support you in that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And to understand that the support I need today might be different tomorrow.
100%.
I think that's important too. So it's not just assuming this is the support you need. I don't always need my partner to take charge, but in that moment I did.
Yeah.
And tomorrow I might not need that kind of support.
Right. Yeah. It's
And
a constant.
How do we adapt to that? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you need to be able to ebb and flow with wherever you're at. And again, and what phase in your adaptive child are you? Are you the 5-year-old? Are you the 12-year-old? Are you the teenager? Yesterday, I was joking because I had to fast for labs. And I fast all the time on Sundays, but because someone told me that I had to fast on this day and this time, and I'm like, but I want to take my pre-workout stuff. I want to have my shake afterwards. And I was totally in that energy where I was just a pouty little, like, I don't want to do it that way. You can't tell me what to do. And then my whole freaking day spiraled because I was in that energy.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, little teenager Tami, let's
hangry Tami.
Right, which is like normally it's not a big deal at all, but it was because someone told me, like, I want to do it on my terms.
So that's a trigger for you, like, right?
Yeah.
Telling me what to do.
Right. And I think it's also me being a Sagittarius where I'm like, don't put me in a box like you can. But it's very, very much, it felt childlike. You can tell when you're in the energy of that little tantrum. Or for me, it's very easy to shut down. Like I don't tend to go into like fight as much. I don't tend to lash out. I retreat. I want to shrink. And actually that happened recently and it was, it was a very profound moment to see where my nervous system, what my baseline is. And I wanted to share this at some point, but here you are. You're like the perfect person to have this episode with. I'm like, how do I talk about this by myself? But I was having a conversation, and with a little bit of a change in tone, I flinched. And it wasn't even saying anything negative, actually saying something very loving, but it was just being serious about the very loving thing.
Yeah.
And I flinched, and like my whole face changed, and I was like, I was bracing for impact. I was bracing for the worst case scenario. I was like, whoa. And it was so clear to both that both just started dying laughing because it was like, whoa. And then I started crying because then I realized like, oh shit, like this is programmed in me to that be my reaction to a slight change in energy, to a slight change in tone. Like, ooh, like I've done a lot of work, but it helped me see there's still that time period where I need to regulate before I can then communicate, because I needed to work through that feeling first to where I could then feel grounded enough to speak.
Yeah.
And sometimes I need that pause to be able to ground myself before I can do that. So you're right. Sometimes communication, we just, need to communicate, need to talk. Like, I can't yet. I'm not grounded. I'm not regulated yet. Yeah. That's
a good story.
That was real.
Yeah. And I think it's lifelong though.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's no place, unless we're staying maybe in a temple on some Tibetan Buddhist mountain, where we're just not ever going to be triggered ever again in our life.
Take me there.
Take me there. So I think that's the beauty of being human, is that understanding when you are triggered, where that comes from for you.
Yeah.
And I talk about 5 losing strategies, and withdrawing is one, which is that flinch and get smaller, right? The other is retaliation. You hurt me, I'm going to hurt you back.
Ooh, that's my children. They love that one.
Yeah. Another one is controlling, either overtly or covertly. I know I did that like all through my marriage. I was in charge of the finances, in charge of everything. It's why I know how to put my boat in, because I put it in the right way. Right. So like that controlling thing, being right is another one. And then another one of my favorites is unbridled self-expression, which is like verbally vomiting when I'm triggered, like verbally vomiting on somebody and going into that like fight mode. And not only am I going to tell you what I think now, I'm going to tell you what I thought 5 days ago about you, you know? And so those are strategies that we do or we learn as little kids, right?
Yep.
And we bring them into our adult relationships thinking it's going to work again because it worked back then or kind of did. And they just don't work. It never gets you what you want.
Right.
If I went off on my partner in that moment and he was just trying to help me,
Right.
now I'm going to spend the next hour, maybe 2 days repairing with him all the crud I said that came out of my mouth in that moment. So yeah, it's pausing and giving ourselves that time to recognize I'm not grounded.
Right. Yeah, because I think about that. If I'm not, whatever comes out is coming right through my ego is that's going. Whereas like if I can ground myself, then it can come through my heart center. It can come, here's how I'm feeling. This is maybe why. But yeah, if I've had many moments where it's like, I need to pause because if I react and say something, nothing good is going to come of this. And I'm going to make it worse.
Yeah.
And that's hard sometimes for people because I think the episode I did with Brittany a couple weeks ago, we were talking about an interaction I had where I felt like I was being backed into a corner, like bullied in a playground. And I was like, I'm not engaging in this because I know where this is going to go. Nowhere good. And that can be hard in a partnership. And me and my ex never really had that. It was more both dismissive and avoidant and just sweep it under the rug or, you know, but then it would just fester. And so it really wasn't any of those other things. But I could tell, again, doing this childhood work is why I want to retreat, is because whenever there was tension, that's what I would do. I would go be in the closet and, you know, hide and get small, you know, because I didn't want to hear or whatever. And so it was just like, oh, I'm still doing that as a 42-year-old adult. That inner child, like, just wants to get small at any subtle shifts and changes.
Yeah.
It's like, whew, like, how do I notice those things and still feel safe in my own experience?
Yeah. Like what you needed as that little girl in the closet was a parent to go, come on out. It's okay. We're going to fight sometimes. We're good.
Yeah.
Fighting happens in relationships, even healthy ones.
Yeah.
And so then you didn't get that through no fault of
not
your
at all.
parents, right? They did their best. And so then as an adult, that's what you need, right? For parent, that's the antidote, right? For shrinking is for the adult in the relationship with you to say, it's okay.
Yeah.
I love you and we're in conflict and we're going to work it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's been the difference in that experience was that's what I felt I was met with was like, whoa, I noticed that. Like I'm still here.
That's
like I want to learn more about this. I saw what just happened.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I want to explore that more. I want to understand that part about you more. Like, really? Like I thought I had to
that
hide
is
this
a good
part of me.
relationship. That is like, I love all different skill levels that come in, but I love somebody who's willing to go into it with you.
Yeah.
And learn with you. And I think that's where people complicate therapy way too much is they think, well, my partner will be better at this than me or something. It's like, get it wrong, but at least work on getting it right and be willing, like the willingness to not know and to know better.
Right. And to just be curious.
Yeah.
Like, tell me more about that.
Mm-hmm.
Cause I was like, whoa, that welcome to complex post-traumatic stress disorder. That's kind of what that can look like. Just being curious about that or seeing someone, how dysregulated they can be so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think it also helped to understand why sometimes I need that extra time is because I have to work through that. So then I can be able to communicate. And I was like, oh, I understand that now. Or so to tell someone like me, let's just talk, let's just communicate. I'm like, I'm frozen right now.
Oh, yeah. How
I am in freeze.
Yeah.
I got a thought and then I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love this as the work that you and I want to collaborate and do together.
Yes.
Because that's a big piece of it is like, how do you find safety or safe enough in your body?
Yeah.
How do you even enter into or approach this work? And it doesn't have to be, I don't think, like years of therapy and laying on a couch and having somebody reflect back to you. I think it can be done, at least the start of it, the entry point of it, very easily.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Just by learning a few simple awareness growing things and a few tools, you can be on your way to starting the healing work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you can come into, you're in a relationship and realizing that we all have that inner child within us, because I even remember with my ex, like I could start to see the little boy in him. And so rather than be hurt by the things look like his adult self was doing or see it as ego, it helped me kind of protect that relationship and like what I knew was there at the foundation, that there was love and mutual respect, but that our egos would get triggered. And that was the things that usually would end up hurting someone's feelings or saying things or whatever, which wasn't that often. It was more of just, again, the avoidance, the silence type stuff. But being able to understand why our inner childs were acting that way and doing that was like, okay, I can now understand that more, meet that more, and be able to work through it myself, or I'm not taking things personally or getting hurt. It just gives you a totally different perspective when you can see it's not just this adult person standing in front of you. There's there's other aspects going on here.
Yeah.
And I think
I have a picture of my partner as a little boy. He's probably around 7. And I keep it on my phone. And there's sometimes that I like, oh, he's so cute. He's such a cutie patootie.
Yeah.
But I have to sometimes think about that cutie patootie when he's kind of being a butthead as an adult.
Yeah. It just, you can bring a different level of compassion. And that couple that I worked with, when they both saw it that way, like, oh my gosh, like your little girl just wants to be heard. And his little boy, it was just like, it felt like all of a sudden in that one session, things just clicked and they both just understood why they were each acting the way that they were, but also, okay, how can I meet you there now? Because he was thinking she was being needy like his mom. And, it was just like, no, but you can help meet her where she's at and you can meet him where he's at, maybe not dumping everything on him, kind of filter out, do what you need to do on your way home to work through some of that emotion.
Right.
And then bring what you need to him. But it was just a completely different conversation once they made those connections about how their childhood experiences were impacting their relationship. It was like, whoa.
There is no way I would still be in my relationship with my current partner without this work.
Yeah.
Working on inner child stuff. I've been training with Terry Real, who wrote the book Us, which is just such a wonderful book, for the last year. And my partner will say the same thing. It saved us. I don't think we'd be together if we wouldn't have read that book and then dove in a little bit deeper by doing some of this work and having a common language around the work. So it's pretty life-changing, powerful, profound.
Yeah.
I mean, it's why you do what you do.
100%. And when you talk about safety, that's just it, is in this current dynamic is making sure that my inner child feels safe. It's like, I was thinking it was you, adult Tami, that needed to feel safe and trust me. It's that little girl. Like, yeah. Because I think about how we can sometimes project too, being someone who's a highly sensitive person and growing up where there wasn't clear communication. There was a lot of passive aggressive or silent treatment, or you just had to like read between the lines and so, and I'm already highly sensitive to those things. Right.
Yeah.
And so I have to be mindful. Am I projecting that onto people where sometimes maybe it is just black and white and they did say what they actually just said, where I'm like, inner detective over here, like, what did you really mean by that? And,
Let me take notes.
Yeah. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting
to live like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's just, you're completely analyzing every little thing. And it's hard to turn that off. And sometimes I just need to take a step back and be like, maybe it is just that.
Yeah.
But I have to recognize, okay, check yourself, make sure you're not projecting because that's just what you were used to. Well, that's how it's always been. Like, well, Tami, maybe that's not how it always is. Maybe not everyone is like that. And there are people that can clearly communicate and would and do.
Yeah. I think for me, I was so often gaslit.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
As a kid growing up, because I think my parents were uncomfortable. I was a very emotional child, very sensitive. And I think my parents were really uncomfortable with that. Like, we don't know how to parent this. Like, why aren't you easy? Or like your sister,
common.
right? And so there were a lot of times where incidents would happen. Like my parents would fight, or my mom would spiral into a depression for a couple days and be suicidal even. And then the cloud would shift. And then everybody would be like, we're all good. let's go to church. Get your nylons on, put your ponytails in.
Look
And I'd be like,
perfect.
what just happened over the last couple days? I feel so confused. And what I carried into relationship then is kind of that hypervigilance of, is really what's happening really happening? Or am I just making crap up because I have an overactive imagination or something?
Yeah.
So that has been profound for me to understand that when you grow up, and many of you listening can probably relate to that gaslit feeling of your perspective is wrong. Look the other way. Everything's fine now. And what that brings to your relationship is you no longer trust your intuition.
100%.
You no longer trust your gut. Like, no, everything's not fine.
Right.
I'm not fine. You're not fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So how can you make sure that you're not because I don't know if everyone actually knows what gaslighting is or what some of those common phrases are that can not validate someone's feelings, even though it may be different. There may be a misunderstanding, but how do you help validate someone's experience or their feelings, even if it may not be what you think it is? I didn't say that very clearly, but
yeah, I get what I'm picking up what you're throwing down.
We sip through that.
Validating is not agreeing.
Yeah.
Validating is saying you have every right to your feelings, your perception, and the experience that you're having.
Yeah.
That's it. Period. Like, it's not that hard to validate somebody and say, I don't see it the same way, and you can see it different.
Yes.
And I appreciate you sharing that that's your perspective. And I think that's the difference when we're arguing about objective reality. Like, no, that's not happened. Then this happened. Then that happened. Then this happened. And we're arguing over the facts of like the order of business or what was actually happening.
Yeah.
We're not in relationship.
Yeah.
When we can get into the subjective reality of how it made you feel and your perception of it, even if I think your perception is dead wrong, it still is valid. And if that's the experience you're having around it, yuck, I don't want you feeling that way.
Right.
So I think that's the biggest thing around gaslighting. It's like, no, not validating your experience. That's not how it happened. This is how it happened. Or your perception is so far off.
Right. Or you're overreacting, or I didn't mean it like that.
You're too sensitive. Why are you so sensitive? I don't know how many times, if I had $1 for every time I heard that in my life.
Same.
And here's the thing. If you're too sensitive and you're listening to this, good. You probably make a really good therapist or counselor or friend or partner, because sensitivity is relational.
It is a superpower.
It is a superpower. That means you're highly empathic. It means you're feeling something and I don't want you to feel that way. How can we fix this?
Right.
So yeah, I think that this now more than ever in any time, we're becoming healthier as a society because of these concepts.
Yeah.
And we're becoming hopefully kinder to one another and more human with each other. And we're having healthier relationships. And, you know, for people out there, especially with men who are not socialized to believe that that's their part or their role.
Yeah.
They're being called to the table.
Yeah.
You know, now more than ever, saying it actually is like, we want you to be my best friend, my soulmate, my lover.
Yeah.
My, you know,
Not
my
provider. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And to be emotionally available.
Yeah.
What does that look like? And creating that safe space so that way you can drop into your feminine energy. So you're not having to put your own boat in all the time, and can allow yourself to receive that kind of help, love, support.
Yeah. I can stay powerful, but softer.
Yeah.
Which feels really, really good.
Yeah.
And helps me feel safer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I take myself camping.
Ooh.
To practice feeling safe in my body.
I love that.
So you're out in the woods and you're by yourself and you hear the owls, you hear the coyotes, and you just do these questions where you're like, am I safe right in this moment? I am. If I don't feel safe in 5 minutes, I can hop in my car. It's right there. I can leave. I can get myself to safety. So it's practicing the art of safety is really important, because it's not going to come from your partner all the time.
Right.
If you don't have it yourself.
Yeah. Well, and I think for me, some of that even started with just working out. You know, if you can be in situations, you're in that final rep where you're like, this is hard and I don't know if I'm going to be able to push through this, sitting in that discomfort, even just starting there, where you're kind of pushing through that last little bit of discomfort versus just giving up. Like, no, sit through that. And then eventually maybe that can lead into other things in your life where you're sitting in that discomfort. We don't ever allow, we try to escape it immediately. And that's where coping stuff comes in.
Yeah.
But I love that idea. And I think that was a huge realization I've had since I saw you last was I had gotten to a certain place where I felt pretty safe emotionally within myself.
Mm-hmm.
But then bring someone else into the picture and
Yep.
like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
And the whole other layer,
Mm-hmm.
and for a little bit there, I'm like, oh man, like I thought I had healed. Like, no, this is just a deeper level of this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is good. This is supposed to bring up the muck and help you see how you can learn to co-regulate versus getting attached in a codependent type way.
Sure. Yeah.
And it was a very,
I'm not good unless you're happy.
that
That kind of way.
story of my life. Yeah.
Like you can be unhappy and I can still be regulated.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. In relationships, some people think that I need to do the work on me and be at my very best in order to even date again or be in relationship. And I'm always saying, no, the very essence of being in a relationship is the fact that it will trigger your stuff and it will change you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I found a quote the other day that
Oh, good.
I loved. I'm going to share it if I can find it. Da, 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 da. Oh, it says, we don't heal first and love later. We heal and love. Through love, around love, in the presence of people who are safe enough, stable enough, willing enough to walk with us through the hard stuff.
I love that.
Yeah. I was like, oh, that's so true. Because
Yeah. Yeah. When I'm feeling triggered in relationships, usually that's a key feeling for me to go, this is really something here. I'm not going to stay forever and be triggered, but there's something here for me to learn about myself, which is exciting.
Right. Yeah. And it's so interesting. And I'm sure you recognize this too, of how often we block ourselves from the very thing we want. Like we just through that protection or thinking like, well, I can't get into a relationship until I'm fully healed. And like, no, you're blocking yourself from the connection that you actually want and knowing that there's going to be healing there. But yeah, you're going to be triggered and knowing that's okay, that it isn't just all rainbows and roses afterwards, and that it's good that those things are coming up. If you can both see it that way, like, oh, this is just bringing up something more for us to look at and to work through. And, and I think that process of getting triggered, being able to communicate, working through it you speed up that process a little bit more. Whereas at first it can be kind of clunky, like, ugh, I'm not sure what I'm doing here, but eventually it's like, oh, here we are. This is ABC. This is how we move through that. It's not always that easy, but
exactly. Yeah. But it's lifelong. And I don't know. I love the work and I love the work that you're doing. And
I didn't realize how much inner child work is going to play into, I think I say it on every intro, every aspect of my life, but especially, I mean, when people can recognize it being the foundation to literally everything, whether it's a spouse, your friendships, your career, the way you love yourself, without recognizing that little person within you, I feel like there's always going to be something missing.
Yeah. Who I work with, how I work with them, who I collaborate, how I collaborate.
Yeah.
When something's coming up in a collaboration, how you handle that, how much money I make, how much money I think I'm worth making, right? How much love can I have? How much confidence can I have? How much risk can I take? All of that is tied into the inner child work. And so if women want to feel more confident in their life, more professional in their life, less imposter syndrome, less people pleasing, want to make more money, the inner child work is essential. And I don't think it has to be this like elusive woo-woo work that we're doing. When we say the work, it's really awareness.
Yeah.
Finding safety in your body and a handful of tools to excavate a little bit. Where did this come from?
Yeah.
How can I reparent myself? So the video I caught the other day was about how do we reparent ourselves? And sometimes I put myself to bed on time versus scrolling through social media for another hour. I'm my best parent saying, go to bed, Christy, because this is not a vote for your future self. If you keep staying up and scrolling and you have things you want to get done tomorrow that are so much more important, or maybe not have that second glass of wine when you're out with people. Maybe just put that down and reparent myself that way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it. And I've said the million times on here, like this work, it's so simple. It's just not easy because you're working through deconditioning and unlearning and coming up with new coping strategies. So that process is a little trickier, but
It brings up
really
feelings.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That we have suppressed and denied and didn't feel safe feeling. And that's a huge part of what I talk about in here is like, how can we start to feel safe in that full range of emotions? That's part of the tools. Like, okay, if I'm feeling anger, what do I need? What are the outlets for me to do that? For me, it's lifting a lot of times. That's where I get a lot of that out. I might flip a tire. I might slam a med ball. I might need that to get my anger out.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm feeling really sad or emotional, I might need to go out in the woods or out on my paddleboard and just cry or curl up in a blanket in the fetal position.
I'm kind of giggling because the other day my brother and I were having a conversation. He's like, how do you do the work that you do? And I'm like, well, I just place my rage on people that park in my parking spot. I just go out there and tell them that is not your parking. I pay for that parking spot. Yeah. For me, embarrassment is the number one feeling that I've had to really work on, and disappointing people.
Ooh, I think I had a whole episode on that. Yeah. It was this fear of disappointment.
Yeah. I would get angry. I'm like, I didn't disappoint you. You're wrong.
Oh no, I did the opposite. I would shrink and I would feel so small and I would feel terrible. I'm like, I'd find a million ways to try to make it up to you. That was my response. Yeah.
So I think that when we say the work, that it's not that out there stuff. But it is getting in touch with your feelings and understanding them a lot better.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like whether it's a stigma around inner child work to think that it would somehow mean that you're ungrateful for your childhood or going to blame your parents, or that it would be scary that, oh, I don't want to go back and relive that. I don't want to go into that.
Yeah.
So how do you help people through that? I know what I generally would tell people. What's your perspective when people are resistant to doing that work for one of those reasons?
I think that people are often resistant to doing the work because feelings are scary. They just want to move forward. Like it feels not efficient enough.
Yeah. Which is why you need to do inner child work.
Yeah, and I'm always saying like, yeah, but if you want to be efficient, you be relational, because the cleanup that you have to do with efficiency, whether you talk harsh or you use a tone or you just sweep things under the rug and like, let's move forward. The cleanup is so much longer.
Yeah.
And to get back into harmony in your relationships.
Yeah.
And so people that are resistant, what I do is I try to find the leverage of what's important to you. So sometimes for people to do the work, it's like not for them, but a lot of times it's for their kids.
Yeah. Yep.
If this was happening for your kids, what would you do differently? And sometimes it's, if you knew that I could give you a key to have less discomfort or pain in your life, would you deny the key? I'm giving you some tools.
Yes.
And that's fine if you want to stay uncomfortable, if you want to stay in pain, if you want to stay in butting your heads with people in your life, you can stay there. Or I'm giving you some keys to get out. So that's sometimes leverage. Sometimes leverage, for couples, sometimes leverage is money.
Yeah.
How much does a divorce cost? How much does setting up 2 households cost? Do the math. I'm good with whatever you decide, but I'm just saying it might be more cost effective for you to try to work on some of this here. Yeah. It does cost a lot.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's finding the leverage. Different people, I think, are motivated by different things.
Yeah.
The other thing too, for me, is I don't try to get too far ahead of the people I'm working with.
Yeah.
Because there's like, oh, I can so see it for you.
Oh,
but that's my inner child. I can fix this for you. I want this to happen more than you want this to happen, right?
I had to heal that.
And I have to really sit back and go, I can't get connected to their outcome. This is their journey.
Yep.
And if you choose this pain or this discomfort or this relationship losing strategy to try to get your needs met, and it will never, ever work, that is totally up to you.
Yep.
But you have to find your motivation. You have to find your leverage. And if somebody's resistant, they often end up alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or they end up in the next relationship doing the same.
Yep. They're getting the test again because they never learned the lesson.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and I see it too is there could be a period of it being dark or scary or whatever. And I always use the analogy of if your inner child has been locked in the basement. I had someone say the other day, it's been 40 years since they acknowledged that little person in them. And I think of the basement that I grew up with. I grew up on a farm. We had the old cellar basements where it was just creepy as hell down there. And we had a pond in our backyard. So sometimes there'd be snakes in there. So I think about that. Like, if my ego put her down there to protect her from this outside world that was going to judge me, that was going to criticize me, that was not going to see me or hear me or value me. It's like, you stay down here where it's safe. I'll go up here and I'll be the people pleaser and I'll be the caregiver and I'll put on this show and dance for everybody while you stay safe down here.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, like all these years, my inner child has been down in this dark cellar, being like, no wonder I don't have any joy. No wonder I don't have that excitement or that zest for life, because she's in the basement, in this dark basement. And so once you make that connection that, oh, I have an inner child, now you can open the basement door and be like, hey, anyone down there? Just get curious.
Yeah.
And to think like, why wouldn't I want to go down and bring him or her up and let them feel safe and not leave them down there scared and alone? Or that they're not important enough to be up in my experience, in my adult experience. And so bringing her up, or even just sitting on the stairs with her, if she's not ready to come up yet, and be like, tell me your story. What do you need me to hear? What do you need me to feel for you? Just to validate that story.
Yeah.
And I think that's oftentimes what you and I are doing, is going down the basement with those people. I'm like, let's go get her. And maybe we sit on the stairs and just tell me your story. Let me help validate that for you. Then she feels safe. Like, can I come upstairs? Is it safe for me? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like she gets to be out in the world and playing again. And that's where you find that joy and that zest for life. And you're like, oh my gosh. And when people reconnect with their inner child, like, it's the most beautiful thing.
It really is.
And but they deny themselves of that gift because going down in the basement feels so scary. When really it's the most beautiful and healing thing that can happen when you reconnect. And I think it was on Amanda's episode with Try for Schools when she like ran an Ironman with her inner child. It was just like,
oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And it was a very different experience than running an Ironman with her ego, and just pushing and drilling. Like, it was such a joyful experience.
I love that. Maybe that's why it was so hard for me to run those half marathons. Maybe I had left her back.
Yeah.
Because I was so serious to get it right or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I think about that, when I bring her into my work, it's so much more enjoyable than if my ego is like, get to work, Tami, or this, and she's like, oh, that doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
But when I can bring her into what I'm doing, because then they don't feel left out anymore. And it's just that little bit of acknowledgement every single day, where if you can acknowledge your inner child and just be like, hey, I see you, then your kids are good. Because even my kids, they need some acknowledgement throughout the day, right? If I ignore them all day long, then eventually they start throwing those tantrums.
Yeah.
So if we can just acknowledge our inner child,
there'd be less temper tantrum. Yeah.
Less self-sabotage.
It's
again, it's simple.
Yeah. And for me, I have a lot of grace and compassion for my inner child. Maybe I'll call her Dee Dee. That was my nickname growing up. So maybe that best represents that piece of who I was. But I really appreciate her because she was spunky and fierce when she needed to protect herself. And so I don't want to just dismiss that part of me.
Right.
Because it got me through and out of really, really difficult, challenging, lonely experiences. So I kind of want her to come along with me because she's a survivor, and good job.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, why wouldn't I want to bring that part of me with? Yeah. And let her experience it. So I said, I don't know if it was in last week's podcast, where I kind of see it as 3 kids I got to take care of now. I've got my daughter, I got my son, and I got my inner child.
Yeah.
I'm not leaving myself out of the fun. I'm not leaving my needs on the back burner. I am just as important as making sure my kids get fed and that they're going to bed and all those things. Like, I can, it's treating yourself that same way.
Yeah.
It can be a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing. And I think if people embrace it, there's support here, with doing that. I don't think you have to do it alone.
No.
So that's the other piece of it too, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to help people with. And so we have a 4-week program.
4-week program, inner child work. And it's just kind of touching in on some of this stuff. And we're collaborating together. And there'll be live calls and opportunities to do homework in between and get the support that you need to do the work if this is interesting to you or you're just tired of the same patterns, the same thing. I'm doing the same thing over for women. 4-week program that starts in June.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very excited because I have always known, and you go back and watch the episode with her, and not, it is about doing the inner child work, but it is also to help that woman really step into her power.
Yeah.
And when I first met you, I was just like creeping on her. The story of how you kept showing up in my life, it was very evident that we were going to cross paths because I think it was like a little kit that I got sent for being a part of a program. And it was, I think, about the counseling that you do around like sex therapy or something like that. And I was still very much in my relationship, but that was not a thing. But I was like, am I dead inside, or is that part of me still alive? And something about that, like I remember looking you up, like I said, being a creeper.
Scary person.
Right. Whereas before I wouldn't have even looked at that or approached that. And so then
I don't need that.
Right? Yeah. Well, then that's kind of what happened is like, well, I forgot about that. And then you kept showing up. And at some point I realized, like, okay, once I heal my inner child, I'm going to need this woman in my life because there's going to be now stepping forward as a confident woman and being safe in her sexuality because that was never a thing. And so it was like, ooh, that's a whole nother level of healing. And so I'm very excited to be able to work with you. And
I love that you shared that because it is such a piece of the inner child work, right? Of denying our sexuality or resisting it, and that which we resist just persists, right? And I was in the same boat, years and years ago in a sexless marriage where it was like, well, maybe that was just for my youth and maybe that was time gone by and I don't need it. And yet I knew really, really deep inside at my core, my aliveness was just being snuffed out.
Yeah.
And sex is playfulness. Sex is aliveness. It's our fire, in our belly. And so.
Well, and it took me realizing that like, oh no, there is that part of me. The only way I knew was through dance, that I love to dance and that I could be that when I dance, but I would never let anyone.
It was a persona.
Yeah. But it would
put it over there.
Yeah. Never let anyone see me dance. That was just for me. But I was like, no, like she's in there somewhere if you can dance like that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, not letting anyone fucking see that.
Yeah. But that was a good episode because we talked a lot about how we dress as women and how that has to do with our aliveness and what we adorn ourselves with and how we show up in relationships. So
right. But that was
into that one.
So much conditioning of just childhood stuff and the way women were presented around us, way we talked about women in front of women around our kids. And that did some stuff to me that I've had to work through and undo. And so it's very helpful and empowering to surround myself around women like you.
Is it?
What?
Has it been helpful?
Yes.
Nice. I love that.
That's a whole other episode, Christy. Part 3.
Yes. That's good because that's inspiring. Because if there's a woman out there listening, and they're like feeling hopeless around that feels inspiring when you're willing to share that.
Well, and that's interesting because I'm working with my coach and we've talked about speaking and things like that and what that would be for me. And I always, my health journey and stuff. And she's like, no, that's not what it is. It's that.
Yeah.
It's being so suppressed to learning how that is actually a sacred thing. I was like, ooh.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. My partner and I this weekend are doing our first workshop locally with couples around sex and de-shamifying.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be working with him in that way and just a very small, intimate group of couples.
I love that.
Really good.
So follow this woman and take the assessment.
The SPARCS assessment. You can find it at www.christiebemis.com. And it's just right there. It pops up.
Yeah. And then they can find our program that we're doing.
Our program.
I'll put the link in here as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, all that stuff will be in the show notes. So hopefully people join us. It'll be fun 4 weeks to just kind of dip your toes in, but get some good stuff from people that just absolutely love and are passionate about this work. So
yeah, it will be profoundly life-changing.
Yes, it has been. So
yeah, great. Thanks for having me again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm afraid to have you on next time now that we just
because there's part 3 apparently. So
yeah, no, that'll be good. At some point, I'm been very vulnerable, I think, on here. And there's certain things I realized, whether it was protecting myself or protecting other people, because it's not just my story.
Well, you have to, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to protect your kids and your parents and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there is that aspect where I know that could be something incredibly helpful for women. And so I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay,
And they might not
Tami.
need as much protection nearly as what you think they need.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I believe I said that with Brittany as well, when she was talking about something with her older sister and how she always felt like, no, it's 222. She was afraid to tell her that, like, felt like I could never live up to you. And she's like, I don't want to tell her that. I don't want to hurt her. I'm like, well, what if that conversation could actually be really healing? Because then she could tell you, I always felt like I had so much pressure, like I had to live up to these standards. It could be an incredibly healing conversation. And so sometimes I try to be mindful of that too, of like, if I'm always holding back certain parts of my story to protect people, I might be withholding an aspect of their healing as well. It's like, how can I approach it? And I always tell Ari and Arlo this too, the way that you say things, make sure that person is in a space where they can receive it. Versus just, I need to tell you this, whether you're ready to hear it or not. You know, sometimes it's how it comes out and someone's ability to receive it. So we'll get there. We'll get there. Maybe we'll have a part 3.
There's a lot there. Yeah.
There's a lot there.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, absolutely go follow her. The assessment link will be in here. Our program will be in here. And we are calling it
Roots and Wings.
Roots and Wings.
Which is really interesting because I was just looking through a journal that I had in 2017. And literally, I had written Roots and Wings.
Stop it.
Yeah. Because I was just doing some like work around like a memoir of my dad and stuff. And I was like, well, maybe he gave me Roots and Wings.
Oof.
Yeah. Which is just weird that I hadn't thought of that ever. So yeah.
It's meant to be.
It's meant to be.
So it's going to be a pretty awesome time. And we're obviously really fun and things. So you can join us for those 4 weeks.
Yeah. True that.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much again for joining me. And any last words for someone's inner child before we wrap it up?
I think just give her grace, love, and compassion because she was really there to support you during what you needed support around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks.
And that could look like joining us for our 4-week program. So
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. And please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, download all of those things, and share this with your spouse, your partner, your friends. Get the conversation going so that way this is just more normalized conversation that we can have versus keeping everything surface level and thinking that everything's fine. These are the episodes that can start really meaningful conversations. So I appreciate you doing that. And we will see you next week.